found out that you were the cold scientific type, not given to flights of fancy.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my channel if it's your first time. This is a monthly wrap-up video, and it's about October 2024, so we're now into November, and it's kind of a freer month in some ways, because I made myself quite an ambitious October, but I was quite pleased with what I managed to do in the end, after a very slow start, which was fine. So I was in the middle of two things when the month started, so I'll tell you what that is in a minute once I get to the books. But yeah, I did read quite a variety of things as well, actually. There's a couple of things I didn't get to, which I want to talk about as well. But I hit a lot of the things I wanted to hit, which is really cool. So, as I said before, I don't read masses during the month. I can't do a weekly wrap-up because I read about 6 or 7 full books a month. So, you know, I'd literally do a weekly wrap-up talking about one book, which I don't want to necessarily talk about every book, like do a book review on every book I read. So I picked those very particularly. So I'm now on 59 books on Goodreads. So I need to adjust it actually because it says 58, but I need to update it. So 59 books I've read so far. My goal was 65. I made it a small goal because my intention this year was to do more writing, and I have done some writing this year. So I am building up a collection of short stories. And I did actually tweak, one thing I did achieve as a writer this month was to tweak one of the stories I'd already written for a short story competition that's done locally. So it's a story about a clown. So we'll see what happens. It's called The Doomsayer. So anyway, that was done, which was nice. So I felt like I'd achieved something on that front. But I haven't done masses of writing though. So really to be on 59 books this year is pretty standard for me, so it means I haven't been putting as much time into the writing that I wanted to, but there we are. It's one of those things. So yeah, let's talk about what I've read then first, and then we'll talk about what I've put on the channel. So I was in the middle of reading this, a non-fiction book about Mad Magazine. This was a gift from Dave from Book Blather, so thanks Dave again. It's a fantastic book. And it really, if you are interested in Mad Magazine, this really covers everything you'd want to know. It's very detailed, but there's also really cool illustrations, because ultimately it's a phenomenon that is based around illustrations. So it wouldn't make sense to not have that. But it's got loads and loads of details about the history of the magazine, though. So if you are interested, it's really, really good. So I just started that when the month started, and I also just started this. Vengeful, which I buddy read with unofficially Dave. Dave didn't end up finishing it, but also more importantly, because he did finish it before I did, Bookish Chaz. So Bookish Chaz was able to tell me what he thought of it, and I told him what I thought of it as I finished it. So we had a little bit of a buddy situation with it. And yeah, it's very good. It's very, very good. When it started, I thought it might end up being better than the first one, but now I can't decide whether it's better than the first one or not. But it's very, very good. If you like the first one, you should definitely read the first one. And I would recommend that if you don't know what this is, it's very good. It's like a kind of fantasy science fiction-y thing. There's kind of a superhero setting, but all based around the villains, and they're the main characters. And the way she writes is really good. So the way V. Schwab writes is part of the magic of it. So yeah, that was a really good book, Vengeful. And I particularly like 2 new characters in that book. So after that, I read what I knew I had to concentrate on as soon as I could, because I had to finish that other book before I started this, because I'd already started it before the month started. But that took me about a week, and I think, oh God, this is a really slow month. But I managed to catch up a little bit as I was going along. And this one I read, The Secrets of Water by Shoshana Edwards. I read this because I've been asked to review it. So the first time this ever happened to me, so I want to make sure I write a good review. I feel a bit of pressure, but I'll be doing that this weekend, possibly before that. If I get a chance tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. But I need to write a review of this book, and it was a good book. I do think the more you reflect on it, the more you think, well, that could have been a little stronger, that could have been a little stronger, but it is a good book. I would recommend it, and it's kind of an interesting horror book that has got a plot that's steeped in Ukrainian folklore, so that's kind of interesting, but it's set in America, but yeah, they're kind of Ukrainian immigrants, and that's kind of interesting. And it's a really funny situation with the characterization, because on the one hand, it's one of those books that really does follow a community, and the whole plot, it centers around a community, but you could also argue that you're not necessarily finely tuned characters as well. So I'm a little bit in the middle on the characterization in lots of ways, but it was very good. It was good. So definitely recommend it. So that was The Secrets of Water. And then I jumped back into the Historathon, and that was really good, because it was kind of annoying me a little bit that I'd been leaving the Historathon a little bit. So I felt like I clawed that back a bit. I've got some things planned for November and December as well. So I think I should be able to earn my place as a host again. But this was the first thing I read to get back into it, which is The Cultural Revolution, a book about Chairman Mao. Really good book and really detailed. I would say I didn't know that much about Chairman Mao before I read this, and I know a lot more now. Really, really good, and recommend it if you're interested in modern history, Chinese history, the kind of political history of communist China, and ultimately, you know, dictatorships and you know, that kind of authoritarian rule. Then this is a good book for that. So The Cultural Revolution by Chairman Mao. Hi to the Historathon hosts. Then I jumped into absurdism with a Ron Goulart book. So I've got a few Ron Goulart books, and because he's a big feature in the Twilight Zone magazine stuff that I've bought over the years. Can you hear Rosie? I don't know how well it comes through the mic, but she's making a lot of noise. But Ron Goulart's part of that, and he's also done lots of non-fiction stuff about fiction, movies, and stuff like that. He's kind of an interesting character, and I thought it was about time I read one of his books, and this seemed to be one that get talked about a lot. And it's a very short book, but it's quite a strong book. For me, this was like a cross between Escape from New York, which is a great film, but Escape from New York in its tone and its atmosphere, and Nick Carter, a Nick Carter book put in the Escape from New York setting. It felt a bit like that. There were these women that were murdering men, and this policeman basically was trying to stop them ultimately, and the lady trying to find who Lady Day was, who was the leader of the organisation. It was set in a near future, and basically America had completely fallen apart, and San Francisco, which is where it was set, was this sort of anarchic police state kind of thing. So yeah, very interesting book. Not one of my favourites, but it was interesting. I think I gave it quite a low ratings on Goodreads, because that's how I felt after I read it. I mean, yeah, it's not brilliant, but it was kind of an interesting read for the month. And then I read some short stories. So I read a couple of short stories by this collection from Robert Bloch. So this was because I wanted to do spooky shorts. I wanted to read some short stories that were in the spooky, horror, Halloween, creepy, eerie kind of field. And Robert Bloch is clearly a good place to go. And I read You've Got to Have Brains and Talent. And they were really good. So You've Got to Have Brains is kind of a standard kind of horror short story where you can kind of feel what's happening, and at the end there's the big reveal, this sort of gory reveal at the end of what the story was leading to. And Talent was really good. and really about this boy who was really strange and then could imitate other people, and imitate what he saw in the movies. So he'd go to the movies, he'd come out and start imitating the characters, and he was mute outside of that. And then it's got this great finale at the end of the story because of the particular film he goes to see. It's a really good story. So if you get a chance to read Talent by Robert Bloch, that's a really good one. So Robert Bloch, obviously most famous for Psycho, which is a great book. So that was a really fun read. So I can carry on reading those stories. And then I read the original story of The Birds by Daphne du Maurier. So this is the first thing I've ever read by Daphne du Maurier. And I could read Don't Look Now as well. It's an interesting collection of short stories by her. I've got Jamaica Inn to read as well. But I did like this. It's very, very different from the film. And this is probably a good time for me to mention that over the last sort of 36 hours, I've seen 3 films as well. 3 sort of Halloween-themed films. And one of them was the film version of The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock. And I wanted to watch it because of reading the story. And the story and the film are very, very different. Completely different in scale. Much more of a dramatic, hellish kind of situation in the film. This is all centered around one family in the story. But it is very good, though. And I like the way she wrote. So it makes me want to read more by Daphne du Maurier. So that was a really cool read. And I think a lot of people would be shocked to know that it's Daphne du Maurier that wrote the original story of The Birds as well. Doesn't get talked about that often. So that was really cool. Then, as it's Occult Detective month, I read most of this magazine. So I've got a little bit to finish, a couple of stories to finish, but I've read most of it. And it's really, really good. I would definitely recommend these magazines. It's very, you can tell that it's edited with an eye for really good stories. I think they do vet the stories carefully, and they are really good. All the stories are really good, all the ones I've read. So my favourite so far is actually the first one in the store in the collection, which is called The Bibliophile. I like that story a lot, but I like the others as well that I read. It's a really good magazine, so I would recommend it. And it's a really chunky magazine as well. It's like 200 over 200 pages. So, you know, it's a magazine / anthology book. Occult Detective magazine. You can get that online. That was really good. So that was a nice addition to October. And then I also read, because I had a chance to go to London with Aaron, to meet Aaron, which I'll talk about in a minute. I knew I'd be on the train for a while, so I thought, well, I'm not going to just take a short story book. I'll take something more substantial. So I took a small novel, and that was T. Kingfisher's novel, What Moves the Dead. And I managed to read it on the whole day's journey. So there's 2 hours there and 2 hours back, and I just about finished it on the way back, even though I kept falling asleep because I was so tired. But I managed to just get the last few pages read before we got back to Fratton. And this is really good. I really like this. I think this is my favourite book of the month. I thought it was really, really good. So I would recommend this. It's very creepy. It's very well done. It's kind of unpredictable in some ways. I love the creepiness of the hares, as in H-A-R-E-S, hares, and rabbit-like things. The hares in the story. I thought that was really cool. But the way it's done is just really quite visually interesting. I think the way that T. Kingfisher writes is really good and very vivid. And I'd love to see this filmed, actually. I think it'd be really interesting. But I think that this might have worked really well in the 1950s. It's got that kind of stillness to it. I think now they probably panic about doing something with this kind of atmosphere, to be fair. But yeah, What Moves the Dead, really good book. That was really cool. So that's what I've... Oh, no, sorry, that's not what I've read, because I've also... See, I was worried that I'd forget this, because they're all in different places. So this month, I managed to get a couple of copies of the Twilight Zone magazine that I didn't have. So I don't know how much you know this, how much you've seen of me talking about this sort of thing, but I am a completist collector of the Twilight Zone magazine, and I've only got 10 to get now. So I am really, really keen to finish the collection. I've only got 10 to get. And I can envisage, hopefully, maybe, possibly, having the complete collection in a year or so's time. I'd be so happy because I've been collecting them since I was 16. Yeah, since I was 16, so a long, long time. But they're very expensive, very rare. But I got this one, which has got a feature on June. And what I read was Robert Bloch's story. So there was a short story by Robert Bloch again in here, Pumpkin, and it was really good. It's pretty gross, like the final moment in the story, but it was really good. So Pumpkin was an awesome short story by Robert Bloch from the Twilight Zone magazine, which in this one is from December 1984. I did read some stuff about H.P. Lovecraft as well that was in here. So again, more Halloween-y things that related to the month and my new acquisition of the Twilight Zone magazine. So that was cool. And then I also read some stuff off this one. So this is obviously got some stuff about Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. It's got the screenplay at the end of the magazine. But it was really interesting because there was this feature about this family of writers, which is the feature was called The Essential Writers, Blood Brothers. So it's like a series called The Essential Writers, but in this particular one was called Blood Brothers. And there was a story in the magazine by E.F. Benson and one by R.H. Benson. And it's really interesting family. They were all writers that were from this family where the sort of the patriarch of the family was the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the things that these brothers had produced were raved about by people like Edgar Allan Poe and M.R. James and people like that. So it's a really interesting article about them, and then I read the stories as well, which were interesting. So yeah, that was really cool. So, what did I put on the channel? Right, so I get to my list. I started with a response to Kim from Middle of the Book March, because she'd done a thing about book events and whether or not reading a book that's in a book event becomes like an obligation, and then you don't want to read it. And that kind of, so it's a really interesting video. And then I did one where I was basically saying that it's all about socializing, and if you don't do it, then you're not going out, essentially, metaphorically. So I did that bookish video, and then I did a video about my October plans, which I think I've stuck to. There's a few things I haven't read, but thematically I've stuck to it, which is cool. Then I did a video about my situation with Facebook and Messenger. It's doing my nutting. I still haven't got any access to my Facebook page or Messenger account. So, you know, people are like, oh yeah, well, I use WhatsApp. And WhatsApp's fine, and I use WhatsApp all the time. But the thing is, I had nearly 3,000 contacts on Facebook. So if I wanted to contact a random band to book them for a gig I'm doing, or I wanted to get hold of someone that I hadn't seen for a few years, or that kind of thing, they were on Facebook and Messenger. But I need their phone number to contact them on WhatsApp. So it's not a great replacement. But I understand why people recommend it, because it is a replacement. It's just not a great replacement. So that's really very frustrating, because everything I've tried has not worked yet to get back on Facebook or Messenger. And I think I've got like about 150 days left, and then my account will just disappear. So it's really frustrating. And then I did a video which was for World Mental Health Day. And I got a whiteboard from work, took it home, and with some whiteboard pens, and did it with an acronym, and basically talked about how to make your life happier, more chilled, more relaxed, more satisfying, less stressful, how to feel less alone, all those different things that affect your mental health, try how to tackle them with your approach to life. So if you're curious about that video, then take a look at that. I did it for World Mental Health Day. and I stand by all of my suggestions in that video. And then I did a video called 10 Books That Made Me, which is a tag that's been going around a little bit. I think I actually talked about 12 books, but I did put 10-ish books in the title. So that was some significant books in my reading life. So that was fun to do. And then, because last month I read Children of Memory, I did a video about the Children of Time series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And I love Adrian Tchaikovsky, and I love that series. So it's interesting to do it and think about the faults that I thought were in the series, while also talking about how much Children of Time, the first one, is a masterpiece. But the other two have got faults, I think. But they're still really good. So all three are definitely worth reading. The first one is ridiculous. And then I did a video called Winning Title Book Tag, which is a really lovely tag that was about book titles. So that was fun to do, because a title of a book is so important, and sometimes it can summarize the book really well, or sometimes it can get you interested in a book, that kind of thing. So that was great. So I did that. Then I did my part 10 of my Twilight Zone videos, and that's really kind of seemed to have hit a nerve. That's over 500 views, and normally the others are nowhere near that. So that was great to see. I don't know if it's because the number 10 is in it, because sometimes the algorithm likes the number 10. I don't know what it is. But it did make me think, well, if people are going to watch them, I'll do them more than once a month. So I did put my part 11 not long after, like a week after. And people are still watching that more than the others. Not quite as much as 10, but I'm thinking, well, okay, I'm happy to speed it up if... They've all been filmed. There's 25 in the series. I thought it would be original 26. But because there's a lot of bad ones in the last few episodes, I just put them all into one video. So, yeah, there's 25 in the series. And I'll speed them up if people are watching them, definitely. Yeah, that was interesting to see. So if you're interested in Twilight Zone, please go ahead and watch that. And I want to thank Michael K. Vaughan for the lovely things he said about my Twilight Zone series. I absolutely love that program so much, and I've been a huge, devoted, obsessive fan since I first discovered it, which was in the A Nice Place to Visit. It was my first ever episode. I watched it on my own TV in my bedroom. It's one of the first things I watched when I was given a TV by my stepdad. So yeah, I absolutely love the Twilight Zone. So massive thanks to Mark A. Vaughan for talking about that. And I hope to see some stuff about the Twilight Zone on his channel as well. More of that kind of thing. And then I did a video which I think I've had a really lovely response from, and I do appreciate that, because it was a hard one to do. I had to edit out the tears. And that was the video called My Life in Genre tag, where I thought I'd honour the original creator of the tag and the sense of the tag, the nature of the questions, by doing honestly. And there was loads of questions, but they were very deep questions. I wanted to take them seriously, so I did that, and it was quite upsetting, some of it, but I've had a lovely response. So a massive thank you to people that responded in a very nice way, because clearly that's a risky thing to do, because, you know, I'm sure people want to get entertained by these videos, and when it gets very serious, maybe they like turn off and go, all right, mate, I'm not interested. And then I did a TBR countdown for what will be next year my 50 favourite science fiction books. So basically, I listed a bunch of books I'm going to read before I do that top 50 list. I am interested in doing a list of my favourite non-science fiction books, or non-speculative fiction, so yeah, non-fantasy and science fiction, because I think there are some books I absolutely love that don't go into that category, and it'd be a shame not to rave about them. So I will do that at some point as well. And then the last thing I did before putting this video up was my video about the meetup with Aaron from Aaron Read a Book, or Aaron Read a Book, and it was a really lovely day in London, and yeah, that was just a really nice part of my week, and I can't wait to see him again. We'll probably meet up again at some point, but yeah, London is obviously a great place to go book shopping, and there's loads there, and it's very easy for me to get to London. So big shout out, actually, if anyone's watching this from the big York get together. I couldn't get to York. I really wanted to share it with everybody. Like, you know, a lot of them were the people from the London meetups that I'd done, so I really wanted to be there. I do miss you guys a lot, and also it's got to be said, it's the first get-together since we lost Alice, so that was another reason why I wanted to be there. But I couldn't be there, so hopefully I'll see you guys at the next one. But yeah, it was lovely seeing Aaron. In the meantime, this has been way too long, so if you're here now, thanks for watching till the end, because, you know, there's only so much of this you can take. I get that. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, everybody.